Live from the chicken wing capital of the world, Buffalo, New York. You're listening to the Childcare Bridge Podcast, your source for the best tips, tools, and tactics on how to market and grow your childcare center, ensuring total domination. Total domination. This is the Childcare Bridge, and this is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Childcare Bridge. Today's topic is about the mindset needed to become a 7- and 8-figure center. Last week, I had the privilege to go in and sharpen my axe in Austin, Texas. And the conference was related to marketing, but it was in a specific area of marketing and certain types of businesses, in particular e-commerce. And it's an area that I've done a lot of stuff in. I'm training both of my sons, who are 15, turning 16 this year, on kind of marketing and business. And I wanted to just go and just get some inspiration from some of the different people that were at the event. And what I found very, very interesting was that I was looking for, and not even looking for, but I was expecting more tactics. Start a Shopify site, do these 5 things, drive paid traffic, rinse and repeat. That's what I was expecting to hear from a lot of these widely successful people. And it's not that I heard the opposite. There were definitely a lot of the tactics. However, the piece that was most brought up, the piece that continued to be repeated, the piece that just had so much more emotion and tonality and excitement when the speaker, the presenter, the entrepreneur was talking about it, was when they talked about mindset. So one of the speakers, she was in her late 20s, and she started and sold a sweet company for like $360 million. $360 million. And I'm like, gosh, this is like, she's probably going to talk about venture capital and all of these things. And she focused most of her entire presentation on how she had to have the right mindset, how she had to have the right belief, how she had to know that it was going to happen. And it started to click a little bit during her presentation, but then she repeated it again in the middle and again at the end. And then I heard another speaker who was doing $500,000, and this year they're forecasting $200 million. And they talked about mindset and how everything is between the ears. And I got to thinking, and I got to looking at the center owners that we work with, which ones are in this league of their own. So they're not only doing well, but they're knocking it out of the park. They have acquisitions that are coming to them. Hey, would you like to buy my center? Would you like to take over the deal flow coming to them? They have staff that want to come and work for them versus having to bang on every door and throw up tens of thousands of dollars on Indeed. They have everything moving in the right direction. And there are a lot of traits that I could go through, but when I really started thinking about it and looking back at the conversations, and I've interviewed a lot of these owners, which I'm going to start publishing to our podcast, it was an intense belief around this topic of expansion. And here's what I mean by that. If you're looking at, we'll use a food analogy. You're looking at a pie, and there's a handful of people that are in the room. Everyone can think about taking their slice of pie and grabbing whatever they can before everybody else. And that isn't necessarily a scarcity mindset, but it's a mindset that you need to grab whatever you can right now. You've got to grab what's around you. You have a fear of a lot of things going wrong. But then we have the people that there's going to be plenty of pie for everyone. And if not, we just go and bake another pie. They have this mindset and this way about them that the world is always expanding, and they're playing a part in that expansion. So if you think about your role in the cog of the universe, and if you start to look at the impact that you're making day in and day out, you're influencing and positively affecting the minds of today that are going to be the people that are running companies, leading successful lives, getting married, having more kids in 15, 20, 25 years. Like you're getting ready to impact the generation to come. You are helping parents make a living. How can they make a living if they have their kids kind of running around? So now they're able to focus on their work. You're impacting the community that you serve. You're impacting all of the jobs that you're providing and then their families. So if you start to look at it from a perspective of, wow, Michael, like we and the center and the business, we actually are making a really big difference. Rather than a place of the sky is falling, what issue is right around the corner, what's going to knock you down 5 levels and you're going to have to restart over here, and gosh, what day is licensing going to pop in and have to deal with that nightmare of a mess. If you start to take a step back and really focus on the expansion mindset, but also this power of positivity. And I'm not typically the person that talks a ton about mindset. I tend to be more of the, here are the tactics, here are the tactics, here are the tactics. You want to open a new center, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You reverse engineer the math. You figure out how much marketing dollars you need to invest. You track it. You rinse and repeat. You generate the cash flow and things start moving. So like that is traditionally where my head has been and how I tend to teach. But as I've been interviewing more and more and more of the centers that we're running the marketing for, and I ask things like, what's your secret sauce? What's your secret to success? How have you obtained this level of success? I'm hearing things like, I just knew it was going to happen. I'm like, well, tell me more about that. Tell me, what do you mean that you just knew it was going to happen? And then I remember a book that I read way back when and that I'm rereading called Think and Grow Rich. And for whatever reason, it was a book that I challenged it. Similarly to how I challenged The Secret, like the law of attraction. Like, is it simply you think about, great, I want $1 million, I want $1 million, I want $1 million, and then it shows up. I need better staff, and then they show up. That's not how it works. There has to be the action set behind everything. But it starts with the belief that things are going to be okay, that business is going to expand, that there's going to be plenty of staff for you to hire. There's going to be plenty of families to enroll at your new center or your additional locations. Now, I'm not saying that everything is going to work out perfectly, but if you take the opposite approach, I look at a lot of the Facebook groups and Reddit pages, and I go to tons of industry events. And there are typically a few different people that are in the audience. And there's the people that are just overjoyed with the impact they're making. And again, they can see the path. Even if they're 5, 10, 15 years away from that, they can visually see it. They can picture it in their minds, and they can then convey that to their staff, to their team, to families, to everyone around them, to if they've got investors, other local businesses, they're able to convey that. And I did a whole episode on putting together what I call a painted picture. The new terminology is vivid vision. And I read about this concept from a gentleman named Cameron Harold, like I would say, it's at least 10, but probably 15 years ago. And that was about painting the picture of where your business is headed. So if you have not went through that one and that exercise, I highly encourage you to do so. So you've got the people that they can see it. They've got a painted picture, like I want to have 10 locations and 1,000 enrollments and 100 staff and like all of these metrics and visual pictures. And then you have the woe is me. I can't find any more staff. Nobody wants to work. Everyone's quitting all the time. And I really start to analyze that and well, tell me more. So like I can easily say, well, what have you done to grab staff? And they'll say things like Indeed, and I've thrown thousands of dollars on that. ZipRecruiter, I've tried that. I've tried to give our staff incentives, just not working. And so, well, what does your mind say about all this? What do you mean? What do you actually think about? What are the feelings that come? What are the mindsets? What are the principles that you're thinking about when it comes to hiring staff? And then they go off on this insane tangent. they're lazy. This generation doesn't want to work. They're not like they used to be. The pay is insane. They want to be on their cell phones. They just give me negative after negative after negative after negative after negative. If you want to start to see your center transform, if you want to go from step 1, 2, 3, 4, if you're over here and you've got problem after problem, challenge, you're losing sleep, you're having anxiety, you're not making any money, you're stressing your spouse out, your kids out, you're stressed out, you're overeating, your health is suffering. If that's over here and you want to get to the other side where you've got prosperity, happy team members, a great culture, lots of money in the bank, not only do you have to make a transition, and we talk about it as building a no-joke childcare center. And that has 4 stages with subsequent steps within each in the areas of marketing, money, manpower, and your methodologies. But the piece that I promise you you're most likely missing is that in order to get from all the stuff you don't want to having the center with multiple locations of your dreams, your mindset needs to change. The way that you're thinking about hiring needs to change. It's typically not them, it's normally you. What do I mean by that? If someone doesn't want to come and work at your childcare center, there's reasons behind it. And if your mind is made up that nobody wants to work, they're lazy, they're going to do all these things, you're not going to attract the type of people that you want and need. But it's also, from a tactical standpoint, it's going to negatively impact the changes that you're making on salary, on benefits, on culture. So you need to take 5 steps back and start to look at all the areas across your center that are not where you want them, whether it's staffing, the actual building, your culture, the payments, the family, whatever it is, or multiple areas. I want you to start to write down all the negative emotions that you're currently feeling, all the negative thoughts that you have on one sheet of paper, every topic. And I don't want you to sugarcoat it, like go full guns blazing. Now, whether you have 5, whether you have 50, you have to do one other thing before you conclude this exercise. Take out another sheet of paper or multiple sheets. And for every negative thing you wrote, you need to write something positive and or a mindset shift and or the opposite of what you wrote. So let me explain that a little bit further because it sounded confusing when I said it. So if I'm taking staffing, hiring, and I write down, I think everyone's lazy, nobody wants to work anymore. Okay, great. The opposite of lazy, they're highly productive. Nobody wants to work. People want to work, but they want a fulfilling job where they're also paid well. I want you to, all those negative things that you write, you need to counterbalance it with something positive or the reverse of something negative. And I'll tell you why this exercise is so important. One of my mentors is a guy named Garrett White of Wake Up Warrior. And he has an exercise where you go through stacks, he calls them. And you're essentially, let's say we're going to do a stack, which is an exercise around some negative thoughts that you're feeling. And you write them all down and they ask certain questions and then you respond to it. And then you ask a different question and you respond to it. And what ends up happening is every single time as you go through this, what your problem was, what your thought was when you went into the exercise, it's the exact opposite by the time you actually go through it. So if I wrote and I said, I'm going to label this stack, all team members suck, nobody wants to work. And then I'm going to describe everything. Everyone's lazy, nobody wants to work, they want so much money, no one wants to do anything, they're on their phone. I write all these things out. And then it's going to ask me something like, well, what evidence do you have that this is true? And that's where it starts to get a little bit tricky. Well, people quit. Okay, so I've had a bunch of people quit. So that's the evidence that I have. Is that going to get you what you want? Let me repeat that question. Is the thoughts that you're having going to get you what you want? If you tell me that you want amazing staff, happy staff, people that want to work at your center and help you grow, is thinking that they're lazy, they don't want to work, is that going to get you what you want? The answer is no. And I've went through this exact stack where a couple of years ago, I had a bunch of team member issues. And I'm like, people are like ridiculous, the great resignation, like all these things. And I realized at the end, the buck stops at me to make an amazing workplace. The buck stops at me to formulate our culture. Geez, I went into this thinking that nobody wants to work, and I came out saying the buck stops at me, and I need to start putting some things in place to build a better culture for people, to retain people. Mindset. I knew that it's important, have known it for many, many years, But it's one of those things. So culture was the last one that for 10 years, I resisted. Like, company culture, like, that doesn't seem like a good investment. And then I heard speaker after speaker, book after book. Now your culture, now your culture, now your core values. Mindset for the last 6, 12, 18 plus months, that is the magic word. And it starts with you. It starts with you looking at all the areas across your life, your business, that you're going into a dark place, that you have lots of negative thoughts. Is that going to get you what you want? If the answer is no, how do you have to shift your mindset so that you can start to move on that path that you want? Go through the exercise, pick all the areas, again, that are not working to the level that you would like. List out all those negative thoughts, and then I need you to counterbalance every single one of those. And I promise you that you're going to start to see, well, geez, there actually are a lot of positive things. And what's going to end up coming about is you're going to see that you need to make a couple of tweaks. You, not the people around you, you. Your mindset needs to change. Your actions, your activities. You as the leader need to start to move that needle, for that pendulum to move, for the ball to start to move in the right direction. Nail your mindset, get your mind moving, running in the right direction, and you will literally be unstoppable. As always, thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. See you next week.